The morning sun cut through the blinds, casting sharp, accusatory stripes across the bedroom. The air was thick with the scent of last night's wine, now soured, mingling with the faint, lingering perfume of someone not her. Emily lay stiff, her body pressed into the mattress as if trying to merge with it, escape into its fabric. Her skin felt raw, each nerve ending buzzing with the shock of discovery. The space beside her was cold, the sheets crumpled where Greg had lain. His absence was a physical weight, a void where warmth should have been. Emily's fingers traced the indent of his head on the pillow, the fabric cool and slightly damp where his sweat had mingled with hers in what she thought was love. She sat up, the silk nightgown clinging to her skin, the chill of betrayal seeping through. On the nightstand, his phone lay forgotten, the screen dark, but the memory of what she saw last night burned into her retinas. The text messages, explicit and undeniable, had flashed before her eyes like a neon sign in the dead of night. Moving through the room, her feet felt the plush carpet, each step a reminder of the life they had built here, now tainted. The mirror caught her reflection. Her eyes were red, swollen from hours of silent tears, her hair a tangled mess from tossing in disbelief and despair. She touched her cheek, feeling the salt of dried tears, the skin tender from where she had pressed her face into the pillow, trying to smother her sobs. In the bathroom, she turned on the shower, the sound of water a temporary shield from her thoughts. Steam rose, fogging the mirror, erasing her haunted reflection. She stepped in, the water hot enough to sting, to distract from the pain inside. The soap she used was the one they shared, its scent now a mockery of intimacy. She scrubbed her skin, as if she could wash away the betrayal, but it was etched into her very being. Dressed, she walked back into the bedroom, the room where they had whispered promises and made love. Every object was a testament to their shared life. The photo of their first vacation together, the book Greg had given her with a heartfelt inscription, now all felt like props in a play that had taken a dark turn. The door to the closet revealed clothes hanging side by side, hers and his, a visual representation of their lives intertwined. She ran her hand along the fabric of his favorite shirt, the one he wore when they went dancing, the one that smelled of him. But now, that scent was tainted, mixed with the perfume she didn't recognize. Emily left the house, the door closing with the finality of a chapter ending. Outside, the morning was crisp, the air biting her cheeks, turning them an angry red. She walked, her steps heavy on the pavement, each one echoing her heartbeat. The neighborhood, once charming, now seemed to mock her with its normalcy. She found herself in the park, the one with the old oak where they had carved their initials. The bark was rough under her fingers, the letters E+G now a scar on the tree, much like the one on her heart. She sat on the bench, the wood cold through her jeans, the reality of their love, or what she thought was love, settling in like the morning dew. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, Greg's name lighting up the screen. She didn't answer, couldn't. Her hand was trembling, whether from cold or from rage, she wasn't sure. She looked at her hands, nails bitten down from the night's anxiety, the skin around them red and raw. As the sun climbed higher, casting longer shadows, Emily knew she was at the beginning of a new, terrifying journey, one where she would have to untangle herself from the life they had built, from the physical remnants of love turned to ash. She stood, taking one last look at the tree, at their initials, and walked away, her heart a heavy, throbbing drum in her chest. Emily returned to the empty house, the silence deafening, the air still heavy with the ghost of last night's confrontation. She moved through the rooms, each one a gallery of their shared life now tainted. Her eyes caught on the couch where they had countless movie nights, the fabric worn from their bodies pressed together, now a monument to betrayal. She began to pack, her movements mechanical, the sound of her bags zipping up like the sealing of a wound. Each item she touched was a shard of their past, the mug with the chip from when Greg had dropped it, laughing, the scarf she had knitted him, the wool still slightly rough under her fingers, the music box that played their song, its melody now a dirge. The kitchen was next. The table where they shared meals, the wood scratched from years of use, bore the ghost of laughter and arguments alike. She touched the surface, feeling the grooves, the memories seeping through her fingertips. The smell of coffee lingered, a scent that once promised warmth and comfort but now felt like a betrayal. In the bathroom, she packed her toiletries, the scent of her shampoo, once a comforting ritual, now just a reminder of routine without meaning. She noticed a strand of her hair on the sink, a stark contrast to the dark tiles, a metaphor for how out of place she felt in her own life. The bedroom was the hardest. She looked at the bed, the sheets still tangled from the night before, their bodies once so close, now continents apart in trust. She stripped the bed, each yank of the sheets a physical manifestation of tearing away from Greg. The pillowcases, once shared, now felt alien in her hands. She walked to the window, the glass cool against her forehead as she looked out. The garden below was beginning to bloom, the flowers they had planted together now a cruel irony of beauty amidst her personal decay. She felt the sun on her face, the warmth now a mockery of the coldness inside her. Her phone buzzed again, Greg's name flashing, pulling her back into reality. She set it down, the screen lighting up the room momentarily, casting shadows that danced like her emotions. She didn't need words. She needed space, time to heal from the physical and emotional bruises left by the betrayal. She left the house with a few bags, the weight of them a physical reminder of what she was leaving behind. The door closed behind her with a thud that resonated in her bones, like the closing of a heart. Outside, the world seemed indifferent to her turmoil. The breeze was sharp, cutting through her clothes, making her shiver, a physical echo of her internal turmoil. She walked to the nearest cafe, the bell above the door chiming a sad welcome. Sitting there, she ordered a coffee, the warmth of the cup in her hands a small comfort. The steam rose, mingling with the scent of fresh bread, a sensory contrast to her internal storm. Each sip was a battle between the bitter taste and the warmth it provided, much like her current life. Her hands, still trembling, found their way to her notebook. She wrote, the pen scratching against paper, the sound grounding her in the moment. Betrayal has a taste, she wrote, like burnt coffee on a cold morning. It's the warmth you crave that turns sour in your mouth. As she wrote, the physical act of putting pen to paper felt like drawing a map out of her own pain. Her handwriting was shaky, reflecting her state of mind, but each word was a step, a reclamation of her narrative. The cafe's noise, the clinking of cups, the murmur of conversations, all faded into a background hum, allowing her to focus on her healing. Emily knew this was just the beginning, the first physical and emotional steps away from a life she thought was hers forever. But now, with each breath, each heartbeat, she was forging a new path, one where she would define herself by more than just the love she had lost. In the days that followed, Emily moved into a small studio apartment, a space where every corner was hers to fill or leave bare. The walls were off-white, the color of fresh beginnings, but they were stark, echoing the emptiness inside her. She placed her bags down, the sound of them hitting the floor a physical acknowledgement of her new reality. She unpacked slowly, each item she placed a reclaiming of space. The scent of her lavender candles filled the room, a soft counter to the harshness of the past. Her books, once shared, now lined her shelf, their spines a parade of stories she would now revisit alone. The photos of her and Greg were left in the box, their smiles now a history she wasn't ready to display. The bed was the hardest to set up. It was new, the sheets crisp, unlike the worn comfort of her old bed. She ran her hand over the new mattress, feeling the texture, the possibility of new dreams, new nightmares. The first night was restless, the mattress too firm, too different, every toss and turn a physical reminder of what was lost. She started to explore the neighborhood, her feet taking her through unfamiliar streets, each step a physical distancing from her past life. The sunsets here were different, the colors less vibrant, or perhaps it was her eyes that had lost their luster. She stopped at a local park, the bench under an ancient willow providing a shelter of drooping branches, a physical metaphor for how she felt, hidden yet exposed. Emily's body ached with the weight of her emotions. Her shoulders were tense, her neck stiff, as if she was carrying the betrayal like a physical load. She joined a yoga class, hoping to ease the tension. The stretch of her muscles, the slow, deliberate movements, were a form of physical therapy for her heart. The instructor's voice was soothing, the physical act of bending and breathing away to release the pain. One evening, as she walked back from the class, the sky was painted with the remnants of the day's light, and she saw Greg. He was there, across the street, his figure a shadow of what once was. Her heart skipped, a physical jolt of recognition and pain. She ducked into a cafe, her breathing heavy, the scent of coffee grounding her back to the moment. Inside, she sat at a table by the window, watching him move on without her. Her hands shook as she held her cup, the coffee sloshing slightly, betraying her calm exterior. She noticed the small burn on her thumb from the coffee, a minor pain that momentarily distracted from the larger one in her chest. Writing became her solace, her hands moving over the paper, the ink a physical extension of her thoughts. She wrote about the texture of betrayal, how it felt like sandpaper against a soul, how every memory now had sharp edges. Her words were raw, honest, the paper absorbing her pain. She began to meet people, not to replace Greg, but to learn to exist among others again. There was Alex, with his easy smile and gentle hands that never once made her feel rushed or judged. They shared a coffee, the physical warmth of the cup in contrast to the cool air between them, a space she was learning to navigate again. One night, as she lay in her new bed, the moon casting shadows across her room, she touched her own skin, the scars of love and betrayal mingling. She felt the roughness of her elbows, the softness of her stomach, the resilience of her heartbeat, each sensation a reminder of her own existence outside of Greg. Emily knew recovery was not linear. It was a series of physical and emotional waves. She felt the texture of her life changing, becoming something new, something she was shaping with each breath, each heartbeat, each step into the world she was reclaiming for herself. Spring was now in full swing, and with it, Emily's life began to mirror the season's renewal. Her apartment, once a canvas of emptiness, now bore the marks of her personality. The walls were adorned with her art, abstract pieces that captured the tumult of her emotions, the colors vibrant against the once bland backdrop. Her days were filled with physical activities that felt like rebuilding. She took up gardening, her hands in the soil, feeling the earth's coolness, the resistance as she planted new seeds. Each sprout was a physical manifestation of hope, of growth, of starting anew. The scent of earth and fresh growth was a balm to her senses, a reminder that from decay, something beautiful could emerge. Her body adapted to the new routines. Morning runs left her muscles warm, her mind clear, the rhythm of her feet on the pavement a physical beat to match the pulse of her healing heart. The sweat on her brow, the ache in her calves, were all tangible signs of her body working through the pain, much like her soul. She met Alex more frequently, their friendship deepening. They walked together, the physical closeness of their shoulders brushing occasionally a comfort rather than a threat. She noticed the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, how his hands moved when he spoke, full of life and passion. Their touch was never possessive but respectful, giving her space to breathe, to be. One evening, they decided to cook together in her small kitchen. The chopping of vegetables, the sizzle of the pan, the warmth of the stove, all created a sensory symphony. Emily felt the heat of the oven, the smooth texture of the knife handle, the resistance of the carrot under her blade. It was a physical engagement with life, contrasting with the numbness she had felt for so long. As they ate, The flavors were more pronounced, the saltiness of the dish, the sweetness of the wine, all heightened by the company. She watched how Alex savored his food, how he appreciated the moment, and she felt her senses awakening, her body responding to the joy of shared meals, shared laughter. Later, in her living room, they listened to music, the vibrations from the speakers felt through the floor, through their bodies. Emily danced, her movements free, unburdened by the past. She felt the stretch of her muscles, the sway of her hips, the lightness in her steps that had been absent for so long. Her writing continued, but now her words were less about pain and more about discovery. Her journal was thick with pages of her new life, each entry a physical testament to her journey. She wrote about the texture of her days, how the sunlight felt on her skin, how the breeze played with her hair, how the pages of her book smelled when she opened it. She knew she wasn't over Greg. His betrayal was a scar that would fade but never disappear completely. But she was learning to live with it, to see it as part of her story, not the end. Her body, once a vessel of grief, was now a canvas of resilience. The physical sensations of life, the touch of fabric, the taste of air, the sound of her own laughter, were all reclaiming their space in her existence. One night, as she sat by her window, watching the city lights, she felt a profound sense of peace. Her body, once tense with betrayal, was now relaxed, open to new experiences. She touched her own face, feeling the smile that had returned, the softness of her skin, the life in her eyes reflected by the moon. Emily knew that love, like life, was about the physical experience, the touch, the smell, the taste, the sight. It was about feeling every moment and choosing to move forward. With this realization, she closed her journal, the physical act of shutting the book a symbolic closing of one chapter and the eager anticipation for the next.